In this example, we actually have 3 shorter examples. And these examples are here to help us create transitions between different sections. For example, if you are going from a verse to a chorus, it is very commonplace to have the strings create a transition via, for example, an ascending line or a descending line, which in effect links the 2 separate sections. There are many different ways of achieving this, but for many people, how to achieve it is another matter. So hopefully we can show you how to achieve the desired effect. If we have an ascending line, like the one I can play here, then fundamentally what is important is the start and the end note. In fact, if the ascending or descending line is fast, we don't even recognize the individual notes. But obviously we do recognize where the run starts and where it ends. You can experiment with your sequencing software by playing such a run slowly, and then, when playing it up to speed, you actually hear an effect not unlike the first note being pitch bent up to the final note. So now we can listen to my first example. Obviously, to create this effect, we need to play fast, or we need to slow the sequencer down. The first chord is A sus, and the final chord is D. So the important thing in relation to our timing is that we end on the D note when the D chord plays. In fact, what I have to do is to count backwards to make sure I end up at the right place. If I am playing 16th notes, I need to make sure the note I start on allows me to end on the D note at the right moment. Using the staccato instrument, we can hear how a run like this might sound. So the important thing is to experiment with where your pattern leads you to. You may not start on the 1 of a beat, but you will need to make sure you end on the 1 of the next section. If you listen carefully to this idea, we can hear that it is made up of individual 3-note patterns, and these then repeat, but moving down a step each time. In effect, we have an up, 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 down, up, up, down, up, up, down, up, up pattern played in 16th notes. This is not a simple straight up pattern playing the scale with the notes in order. We will play this in with the legato instrument, which lacks the attack of the staccato strings, but with a bit of practice you can compensate for this lack of attack by anticipating somewhat. What we can do, however, is use a separate instrument to double the legato instrument with the staccato instrument to give the attack that we need. What is important is that we balance the 2 instruments carefully. We don't really want to hear a staccato line, we want to hear a legato line that is defined, so that the staccato instrument is simply defining the start of each note, and therefore should not be too loud. So having recorded it, we can now listen. Hopefully you heard that there is more definition to the attack, but the effect is still legato. We can enhance this some more by layering another instrument, and I'll choose some more legato strings. So suddenly it sounds pretty full. Let's listen to the strings in solo. We could lower the staccato strings even more. So now I've done that, let's listen again. In doing this, we could hear that we have a defined attack, but the overall effect is definitely of legato playing. Although this doesn't fall into the realm of this tutorial, we could automate it to build this section up somewhat. Starting at a slightly lower level and bringing the volume up over time would increase the dynamics as we reach the climax. So let's listen one more time to the whole section. Now we can move on to the next section, and this is identical to the first one, but what we want to do here is to have a shorter transition. If we look at our previous transition, we can see that it is 2 bars long. What we want to achieve here is a transition that is perhaps half a bar long. To achieve this, we probably don't want to do the up, down, etc. pattern that we did in the previous example. We can simply go straight up the scale, something like this. So we might choose to start 2 beats before the end point. And obviously, to do this, we need to decide which note to start from. But this is a simple matter of counting back from your end note. Obviously, to achieve any of these effects in a song which is up-tempo, you need to play rather quickly. But if this is not possible, we can use the old trick of slowing the sequencer down, and in some cases, slowing it down quite dramatically. In this example, we can slow right down to 70 BPM. And of course, we have to mute any non-tempo synced samples, such as the guitar. So as you can see, if we slow the sequencer down, you have a lot of freedom to play transitions like this. And now I can double it with the staccato samples. And yet again, I'll double it with the second legato strings. So now let's listen at full tempo. Even at full tempo, it sounds very realistic, even though we performed it at half speed, more or less. Now let's bring in the guitar to listen to the complete section. So I think this would be a great transition for a song like this, even if the song had vocals. It certainly wouldn't get in the way of anything, and clearly defines the change to the following chord. Now we come to our final example. This is a transition that covers 1 whole bar. This transition requires some pretty speedy playing as well. So after a run through, I'll record it. Obviously, we could once again slow the sequencer down, but I just about got it right. And now I can double it with the staccato samples. Now we can layer it with the staccato strings. Just out of interest, I'm now going to layer those staccato strings with the orchestral essential staccato strings. And now finally, I'll double the legato strings. So now let's listen to the string section in solo. One thing I would choose to do now is to remove one of the staccato string sections. But I'm not sure which one, so I'll listen to each one and choose whichever one suits the music best, or find a good balance of both. In the end, simply lowering the level of the second staccato strings creates the right sound. So now let's listen to the whole section again. Hopefully, once again we showed that even using fairly standard libraries, you can create most of the effects needed to create realistic and interesting string arrangements in pop or rock musical settings. Of course, there are many libraries that have string runs as individual samples, and it's nice to have all of those tools available to you. But even taking a standard library like the Cine Samples Lite library, you can create almost all of the effects you will need. Of course, if your keyboard skills are somewhat lacking, you could even go into the editor page and draw a run like this. You don't need to be able to perform everything you create in an arrangement at full tempo either. You can simply lower the tempo of your sequencer or use the step editor. This obviously means that you don't need to have the keyboard skills to create a string arrangement. If you are a guitarist or a singer or other instrumentalist, with the tools and techniques you have seen, anyone can create interesting and realistic string arrangements.